5514, 5517.
So you got it.
I've got them.
Yeah.
I've got them. I've had them. I've sold them. I've bought them. I've regretted selling it. I've bought it back. Yeah, it's something that I'll always have.
Grahame Fowler, thank you for having us today. Thanks for joining us on Talking Watches. Before we even get started, just tell us, where are we right now?
You're in my studio, which I relocated from Long Island City out to the east end of Long Island. So, it's a big space and lots of room to play around in.
Now, some of our readers and viewers might not know who you are, but this is not your first time on Hodinkee. There was a great video that we had posted a few years ago that strictly focused on mil-subs, Rolex Submariners used in the military. And I noticed, and continue to notice, that you're attracted to watches that not only have seen action, but you can see it in the watch itself. It's visible.
Well, that attests to the value that it was really just used as a tool watch. And that, for me, that goes back to it has, character and soul. And what's really fascinating as well is that in 50 years time or 100 years time, it gets passed on to someone else. So you don't own it.
You feel like a custodian.
That's exactly what you are. You never really own it. You're going to pass it on to a friend or to your son or your daughter. It will live longer than us.
Well, why don't we start going through these chronologically, and let's talk about this one right here.
So this is a 1972 COMEX non-logo dial.
That means no COMEX stamp on the dial.
Correct. Some people would argue that this is the original COMEX because it's the prototype. It was what Rolex were developing with COMEX in terms of the HEV valve on the side of the watch, which allows the helium to escape. And the first batch really had no logo on the dial. And a second batch would have a logo. It would be a matte dial with a logo. And then the third batch would have service dials. So when this watch went back for service to Rolex from COMEX, it would have the dial invariably swapped out and
had the COMEX stamp on it at that point.
Yeah, and put a service dial back in it with a COMEX stamp. This one escaped. This one is kind of how it was found. It was covered in well splatter. Actually came from a good friend of mine who was into watch collecting years ago. I bought it off him. He bought it off the diver. And it's on the side. If you rub your fingers on the side, you'll feel it's almost like braille.
Yeah, oh wow.
So he was like a deep sea floor welder, and the watch was covered. You could barely tell the time when I got it.
But of course, not all COMEXs are created equal, and some are empirically more rare than others.
Yeah.
And I think maybe this next watch is a good example of that.
Yeah, the 5514 is the pinnacle in the Rolex COMEX lexicon, only because it has that specific reference number that Rolex gave to that watch for COMEX. It's not a reference number you could buy. It was a reference number that was issued. And there were different batches of these issued again. There were non-logo, there was matte logo, and there was service logo.
This one has very, very intense, sort of almost pumpkin-colored patina.
Yeah, well, this one, it goes darker the longer it's stored in the dark. And then when it comes out, it takes on a whole nother hue and slowly turns, creamier. Rolex, when they were printing the dials and making the hands, it wasn't in-house, so it was all contracted out. And there might be 4 or 5 different companies that were making the dials. So it'd all have a slightly different technical, chemical makeup in the printing of the plots. Obviously, technology's changed. Printing techniques have changed. The chemicals have changed. Everything's changed, so they all vary. And then they vary under the conditions that they were used in.
You don't wear this watch?
I've worn it, but I don't really wear it much. Yeah, they've become like works of art, really.
Yeah, that's true.
It's like sculpture with a history. Yeah, they tell the time, but I think it's the time that they're steeped in that is omni-important for me.
As we keep going down the line, we're getting a bit more complicated now.
Yeah.
Now we not just tell the time, we have the date function sort of being integrated into the watch. So What makes this particular piece significant?
This is a 1665 with a 600-meter dial, so it's the first dial that was issued on this watch. This is 78, and it's got a nice even patina on the dial, nice even matching hands. It becomes the classic Sea Dweller. You know, that's another one, and
Right.
they're kind of the same year,
Yeah.
77, 78, and that was available, you know, civilian, and that was issued. The 1665 and the 5514 are sort of considered the 1-2 of COMEX.
So that's the Submariner and the Sea Dweller that you want.
Yeah.
Let's talk about this one a little bit.
Yeah, this is a 16800 with a matte dial. So it's a Submariner, and the first 50 of these were issued with a matte dial with sapphire crystal. After these 50 were issued, the remaining 150 were issued with gloss dials, like this one.
Right.
That was the anniversary watch.
Applied markers and the white gold surrounds.
Correct.
But here you've got that.
But here you've got this. So when these went back for service, Rolex would take the matte dials out and put the gloss dials in, and then send them back to COMEX or send them back to the diver.
Right.
So I've come across 5 of these in this configuration.
The combination of the sapphire crystal and the matte
with the
dial.
matte dial, yeah.
So we're kind of reaching the end of the line of our COMEX here. So this is kind of interesting because it also kind of represents the end of the line for COMEX in general.
Yeah, 96, 16600. Again, the classic Sea Dweller, nice, big, heavy, chunky, great engraving on the back, full box and papers. You know, it's the quintessential modern, you know, COMEX. I mean, I don't have one of each model. I would love to have one of each, but you know, the prices now are just like crazy. So
if you did have one of each, how many watches would that be?
That'd probably be about 13 or 14.
Different variations.
Yeah, if you included the Omega Ploprofs, of which 25 were made for COMEX also.
Okay. Well, let's move out of the COMEX for a second and into the realm that a lot of people know you to be sort of the consummate expert in, which is mil-subs.
Yeah.
We have a great example here.
Yeah, well, this one's missing its 60-minute bezel because, you know, they all got beat up and they changed the hands and the bezels when they went back for service. But this is a 5517, which I think is the pinnacle for Rolex mil-subs. That and the double reference. This one, the guy obviously left the service with it and scrubbed the back off it, so it has a scrub back. But we know it's a 5517 from the reference number and when the case number is engraved on the inside of the case bag. I do actually have a bezel for this, which it's going to be reunited with at some point in the next couple of weeks. But you know, this is, for me, the Maxi dial 5517 is the pinnacle of the mil-subs for the British Army.
And the scrubbed back, meaning it has none of the issuing
has none
markings.
of the issue numbers because at the end of the day, when these guys left the army, technically this would belong to the MOD, so it should have been returned to the quartermaster stores, or it may have inadvertently not been returned and therefore someone got spooked, or it may have been someone that was even like undercover somewhere and
didn't want to get caught with it and have someone look at the back.
And if he was caught with it, you know, in some strange country and it had all these numbers on the back, it would sort of ID it as a military watch.
Sure.
So some people did that. They rubbed the backs.
And then of what you brought today, we have one that is not Rolex.
Yeah.
Let's tell us about this one.
Yeah, that's the Omega Seamaster 300 with batten hands. Issued in 1967, one of 50 watches issued, the first batch of Omega Seamaster 300s to be issued to the SAS. It was sort of a prototype batch they wanted to see if it would work.
If it was waterproof.
If it was waterproof, would it work? Did it meet all the standards of the rigors of what it was going to be doing? So it was issued to this chap in the SAS. He had it for a number of years. And when he left the service, he passed it on to a younger chap that had joined the SAS. And he had the watch and he wore it on active duty in various conflicts. And when he left the service, he just put the watch in a drawer and just sort of didn't really, wear it much. But this one survived.
Yeah.
I mean, these really were not terribly waterproof. So to find one that survived is really interesting.
Now, for you, you've seen and handled so many watches.
Yeah.
Is there a watch out there that either you've had and given up, or that you've never had and still want? What is that ultimate sort of apex watch?
Oh,
if it even exists.
5514, 5517.
So you got it.
I've got them.
Yeah.
I've got them. I've had them. I've sold them. I've bought them. I've regretted selling it. I've bought it back. Yeah, it's something that I'll always have. But at the end of the day, you can't take them to your grave, so you can only wear one at a time.
That's right.
It's like collecting cars or collecting scooters.
Sure.
You can only drive, ride, wear one at a time. So
I mean, you do have two wrists.
yeah, that's true. Yeah, but then you need a left-handed wind one.
That's right. That's right.
That would be a grail watch for me. A left-handed wind, PVD coated Mil-Sub.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be a grail watch.
All right. I like that.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have expected that.
Well, it does exist.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Officially?
Unofficially.
Unofficially.
Yeah.
PVD coated.
Left-hand wind.
Wow.
5517.
All right. We heard it here on Talking Watches. That's a pretty great grail.
Yeah.